Okay, so now I'm going to walk you all through some tips for working on your PowerPoints, but in doing so, I wanted to share with you one of the tools that you have available to help you add the audio to your presentations. This tool that I'm showing you is called Screencast-O-Matic. It is a free online website that allows you to record your screen along with audio, which is great for a presentation, anytime you're doing maybe a Prezi presentation that you're adding the audio to afterward. Like I said, it's free, and then at the end you can export it as a video and share it that way. So I'm on Screencast-O-Matic's homepage right now using the screen recorder. When I was ready to start recording, I just clicked Start Recording. It prompts you a couple of times to allow some Java use, but then you just click the record button and you're ready to go. And that's what I'm using right now. So I want to walk you through the presentation that I have for you on creating an effective presentation. And this is based on some of the presentations I looked at today. So let's just go through these really quickly. I created this one this afternoon just as sort of an example to show you how to use the Screen-O-Matic. But these all came from some of the presentations that I looked at today. So, my name is Meredith Singleton. I'm a faculty member at NKU, and I'm going to be talking to you today about creating an effective presentation, tips to avoid a busy but sleepy presentation. So, my first point is that the beginning is important, and you'll notice that I just introduced myself at the beginning of the presentation. That is extremely important, especially when you're presenting online and also in person. Also, put your name on your presentation. You'll notice on the beginning of my slide, my name is down there at the bottom. Your name should be on the beginning of any presentation that you put together as well. Secondly, bullets are tricky, but they don't have to be once you sort of understand how you're working with them. So my first point is don't bullet everything, and that means you have to override whatever need Microsoft has and PowerPoint has to want to bullet point everything on your slide. You can easily do that by just hitting backspace, and that will take out that first bullet. Bullets are lists, and so if you have a list of your points on your screen, great. That's an effective use of a bullet. If you don't, if you just have one point, no reason to add the bullet there, and be cognizant and aware of that. Secondly, maintain your parallel construction in your bullets. So I have an example listed here. My first bullet is a sentence, therefore it needs a period. It needs punctuation. My second point is not a sentence, therefore no punctuation, but I also have a different sentence construction there. The first is a sentence, the second is not. And you'll notice my last bullet then is just a two-word point being made, noun phrase. So several issues with these bullets going on. First is that they're not structured in the same way. I started out with a sentence, then they should all be sentences, or they should all be noun phrases, or they should all be verb phrases. Whatever format you decide to go with is fine, they just all have to be consistent and follow that. Secondly, unless it's a sentence, it does not need punctuation. If you are ending a sentence with your list, you would put a comma at each end of those until you get to the last one, which would have the period. Each one does not get its own period unless the whole bullet is a sentence. And then lastly, watch for capitalization. So notice in my examples above, I have my first sentence, the only capital letter is the beginning. That's correct. In the second one, I have the first two words capitalized, but the last two not. And in the last one, I have the first word capitalized and the second not. So you should only always have the first word capitalized unless within your bullet you have some sort of acronym or title that requires capitalization within it. Otherwise, just initial caps, which means just the first letter of the item in the list. The third tip is avoid cliches. Cliches in any kind of writing or communication are culture specific, generation specific, and they're just plain old tired. And I listed several of them here that come out of the workplace. One of the ones that seems to be at the top of everyone's mind is, at the end of the day. Another one is, take one for the team, or let's make sure we're all on the same page, or let's focus on the low-hanging fruit. And then finally I have, let's circle back on that. All of these are phrases that if you were working with an international audience, they might not translate correctly. They're tired, are you rolling your eyes yet type phrases because we've heard them all a million times. So you'll want to avoid those at all costs in any kind of workplace communication, whether it's presentations, letters, memos, whatever. Cliches there's no place for them there. The next point that I have is avoid inconsistency with your animation. Now, I played with them a little bit here. Okay, there's another one, and another one, and another one, and a last one. Animation in your slides is fine. Transition between your slides, animation is fine, as long as you maintain consistency with that and keep them at a level that it doesn't become distracting for your presentation. Use the same one to introduce each slide, use the same one to transition among points in the slides. Just maintain consistency there and keep it at sort of a basic, non-distracting level. I also wanted to make a point about using the visuals in your presentations, and I asked each of you to use some visuals in yours. Not only do they help you engage with your audience by adding a little bit of personality to it, but they can also help you relay some data. But I also want you to be aware of graininess. So keep the grain in your diet alone and keep it out of your presentations. You'll notice I have two images here that I pulled off the web. Same image, one has just been blown up to fill the screen. Grainy images in your presentations can do you more damage than good because the audience is too busy looking at why did she use that grainy image rather than listening to or reading about what it is I'm talking about. So in those cases, whenever you're pulling clip art or stock images off the web, you have to be careful that most of those are in low resolution quality. So once you try to blow those up on the screen, they're going to look even more grainy than they would as a small image. So my advice here is to keep it small unless for some specific reason you need it large. If you blow it up and it looks like image B, it's a little bit grainy, it's a little bit blurry, you're going to want to find a new image. And then lastly, be sure to close your slide. Ask for questions, thank the audience for their time, provide any contact info. It's basically like the conclusion of any kind of paper. You always want to wrap things up at the end instead of just sort of falling off the cliff. Imagine a presentation that doesn't have any kind of closing slide, if you give them in class, perhaps. In person, you get to the end of your last point slide, and then you kind of say, okay, that's all I had, and then everyone says, oh, okay, now it's time to clap. So you want to make sure you always provide some sort of closing slide so that your audience knows, the presenter is wrapped up, I can begin clapping and move on to the next person. So here is my closing slide. Any questions? You can, of course, email any questions to me at either of my email addresses, and I'm happy to answer those. If you have a specific question about your presentation, I'm happy to go over those as well. Again, if you are still struggling with the audio of your presentation, you might want to try the Screencast-O-Matic. I just used it. It's very easy to do. It doesn't require you to download any sort of software or pay for anything. Online alone, and it'll create for you one video presentation when you're finished. Alright, so I look forward to seeing your final presentations towards the end of the week, and as always, if you have questions, please get in touch with me. Have a great rest of your week.